Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we are diving headfirst into what is easily one of the most fascinating, chaotic, and frankly lucrative frontiers in all of tech right now. I'm talking about the decentralized AI landscape of Bittensor. Now look, with massive opportunity always comes massive complexity, right? So the big question is, how do you actually separate the signal from all that noise? Well, in this explainer, we're breaking down exactly how the absolute sharpest minds are finding their edge using the data-driven intelligence of SubnetAIQ. You know that classic line, "The most valuable commodity I know of is information"? Yeah, Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. It's a famous movie quote for sure. But in the wild west of the Bittensor ecosystem, it is absolute, literal reality. Actionable data is the ultimate currency here. If you want to follow the money in a decentralized network, you absolutely cannot rely on gut feelings. You need to know the exact why behind every single market move. And to really wrap your head around why that information is so critical, just consider the sheer scale we're dealing with here, 128. Right now, as we speak, there are 128 active subnets processing live data on Bittensor. Just think about that for a second. That's 128 different fully decentralized machine learning economies operating simultaneously. They're all competing for network rewards or emissions, and they all require constant 24/7 real-time monitoring if you want any hope of understanding where the capital is actually flowing. Which brings us to a harsh reality. Blindly throwing hardware at this network is honestly just a great way to set your cash on fire. Let me paint a picture for you. In a recent real-world test, some researchers deployed 16 miners using high-end RTX 5090 GPUs. You know what happened? Out of 16, only 3, just 3, actually earned any of the network's native token, Teo. The other 13 were basically wasted effort. They ended up in dead subnets, networks with totally broken configurations, or economies that were completely monopolized by just a handful of players. So the risk of flying blind here is severe.
So you can't just throw darts at a board of 128 subnets and hope for the best. You need a rigorous system. And that's where SubnetAIQ comes in. They apply this ruthless, totally data-driven methodology that just entirely eliminates the guesswork. They're taking backward-looking performance data and combining it with forward-looking on-chain signals.
At the core of this whole system are 6 absolutely crucial factors. We're looking at yield, momentum, liquidity, AI consensus, pool safety, and emission dilution. SubnetAIQ's main thesis is that a high-conviction staking opportunity only truly exists when all 6 of these things align perfectly. Look, anyone can find a high yield, right? But looking at this full 6-factor picture is exactly what keeps you from getting trapped in a dead subnet. Now, you're probably sitting there wondering, okay, how on earth do you track 6 complex metrics across 128 fast-moving subnets in real time? Well, you don't do it manually, that's for sure. SubnetAIQ actually utilizes 12 specialized AI agents that are constantly running in the background. We're talking about incredibly dedicated bots, like a yield farmer calculating returns, a risk sentinel scanning for anomalies, a divergence agent tracking subtle market shifts. They are literally crunching this exact data 24/7 so you don't have to lift a finger. And the crazy thing is, this intelligence gathering is evolving at a rapid pace. They just rolled out this massive V2 engine upgrade, and it is a game changer. The ranking engine now introduces advanced root proportion analysis, which basically tracks a subnet's actual weight and influence, along with 30-day return scoring, and a super heavy emphasis on pool safety. All of this ensures that the picks that get locked in every Monday are based on the deepest possible analysis of the network. But here's the thing. Analyzing returns, that's really only half the battle. The other half, the arguably more important half, is analyzing risk. So let's pivot and look at the core of their risk mitigation strategy. It's all about measuring actual, verifiable skin in the game, and they do this through something called the conviction dashboard. It is a brilliant way to see who is actually committed to a subnet long-term and who is just looking to pump and dump for a quick exit. Let's define what we mean by conviction here, because it's super important. Conviction isn't just about how much tail someone stakes. The actual formula is stake multiplied by time, and these scores accrue entirely on-chain. What this means is that true conviction is measured by the duration of time someone is willing to lock their assets into a particular subnet. It is a defensive tool that proves real long-term commitment, rather than someone just coming in and flashing a bunch of cash. And they take all that data and build it into highly actionable risk categories. So a subnet might be marked as distributed, meaning it has 15 or more holders, which is great. It indicates really healthy governance. Or it could scale all the way down to a single owner risk level, where one single entity controls over 90% of the conviction. Knowing the difference between those two extremes is exactly how you protect your bottom line. To put that into perspective, let's look at a real-world example of a glaring red flag, subnet 3. According to the on-chain data, a staggering 95% of the total conviction in this subnet is controlled by a single owner. Guys, that is a massive exit risk. Without having this specific data in front of you, you might just see an attractive yield, jump right in, and be totally unaware that you are literally standing on the edge of a cliff. Now, the dashboard doesn't just sit static. It tracks dynamic shifts in power using something they call challenge alerts. So a challenge alert pops up when the second highest conviction holder creeps up to within 30% of the top holder. This is a massive signal that a potential ownership takeover could be underway. Think of it as an early warning radar for stakers. It flags impending volatility and governance battles long before they fully erupt. Okay, so we have the metrics and we have the risk profiling. Let's transition into the actual real-world impact of having this kind of on-chain intelligence. Why does it matter to track the massive players, the whales, and the overall momentum? Well, because in the Bittensor ecosystem, having this data before the broader market catches on is literally the difference between leading the pack and being the one left holding the bag. And to understand just how insanely fast this ecosystem moves, look at this recent timeline. On April 10th, Covenant AI unexpectedly exits. Boom. Then, by May 3rd, an autonomous AI agent named Arbos literally builds and deploys Subnet 97 entirely by itself. 5 days later, May 8th, Intel engineers co-author a paper validating compute on Subnet 4. It's moving at absolute breakneck speed. And the consequences of missing these major events, they are staggering. When Covenant AI unexpectedly dumped their tokens and exited, the price of TAO crashed by 20%. $900 million was wiped out almost instantly, leaving multiple subnets completely in limbo. That traumatic event alone proves exactly why real-time whale tracking isn't just a nice-to-have, it's financially vital. So, I really want to anchor all these heavy metrics back to one simple, absolutely undeniable truth in this space. Whales move first, always. Institutional money and these massive token holders, they don't go on Twitter and broadcast their moves. They just quietly make them on-chain. Momentum alerts and deep data platforms let you spot those massive capital flows and actually act on them before a trend ever even hits social media or the news cycle. Which brings us to our final point today, the edge in AI staking. Because look, all of this intelligence, the conviction tracking, the momentum alerts, the whole shebang, it's only valuable if you actually use it to gain strategic foresight. And here is exactly what that foresight looks like in practice. Based on things like root proportion and liquidity, the V2 engine identified some very specific top opportunities. We're seeing SN95 Neon leading the pack, right alongside SN68 Nova and SN4 Targan. And remember, these aren't just random guesses. These are highly calculated selections derived directly from the cold, hard mathematical realities of the network. And the stakes for getting this right, they've literally never been higher. Major institutional players are flooding into this space right now. Take Stillcore Capital, for example. They recently issued a massive prediction forecasting Tau to reach $3,000 by the end of 2026. They're citing the subnet flywhale effect and this massive influx of traditional finance money. The sheer scale of the opportunity within the Bittensor network is monumental, provided you know how to navigate it. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question that I want you to ask yourself as you look at your own strategy right now. Are you moving before the whales, or are you just following the crowd? Because in the decentralized AI ecosystem, information is your only true advantage. It's time to stop guessing and start knowing.